Wasa'iati, how are you? It's been a while, I know, but it was a nice break for me. And I got a ring light, so I can record anytime that I want to, and that's what I'm using right now. So tell me what you think. Do you like it? Does it look good? Do I look good? That's the most important thing, of course. Um, Today I am going to be talking to you about the Canada Reads 2021 books. I am going to be reviewing all 5 books, and then I want to talk about my predictions, and then I'm also going to wait to post this till after the event because I figure it would be fun to then react to what actually happened and see if I was right. Well, it will be fun for me at least. But as of this moment, the day of recording that I'm recording this right now, I have not finished the last book that I have to read, which is Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. So what I'm going to do is review the first 4 books that I read, and then I will review Johnny Appleseed once I finish it, and then insert it into this video. Do a little more editing, insert it into there, and then I will add in later my reaction. You know how this works. So what I'm going to do, I think, is review the books in order of my personal ranking, how I view them, or my preference, I don't know how to word that, my rating. And then after that, I will go into what my predictions are. You might be asking, Erin, how do you already have a prediction when you haven't even finished the last book? I just have a gut feeling. That's why. I think I know myself, and I know how I feel about that last book. I actually had predictions before I'd even started all these books, and I think for the most part, they haven't changed much, just based on the synopsis and gut feeling, like I said. So, let's begin. The first book I want to talk about is Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica J. Lee. This one is part memoir, part nature writing, and also travel memoir. So she mixes in a lot of descriptions of her travels through Taiwan, which is where her family comes from. The author is a British Canadian Taiwanese person, and I believe she grew up in Canada, and her father is British and her mother is Taiwanese, if I have that right. Anyway, so it's about her travels through Taiwan, reconnecting with that part of her family's history, and then interspersed within that are reflections about her own family and pieces of a 20-page letter that her grandfather had written, and they'd found after her grandparents had passed away. Both of them had passed away. So it was kind of like her memoir, but it's also her family's memoir, her grandfather's memoir, her family's story, and I would say the story of the land itself. And so I think there's a lot of really great stuff about it. I really like the aspect of it where she's reconnecting with the land and with its history, and she describes the animals, plant life, all of that kind of stuff, and I think that's really great. For me, though, even though I think that's great, it's really hard for me to read. I'm a very visual person, so the in-depth description of place was hard for me. I think it's because it's hard for me to imagine, maybe. But if you really like nature writing, that might be your thing, because I think it's really beautifully written, really well written, but it just didn't click for me. I really liked the parts when she started to talk more about her family, and I think she could have gone more in depth with that, because there's some really interesting stuff because her family just didn't talk about their past, and they go through, her and her mother reconnect with family that had been they didn't know about or was long lost, and those were really beautiful moments. And they talk about she doesn't know the language and she didn't grow up speaking it. Her mother speaks it, but her mother didn't teach it to her. And there's just this whole thing about when she goes to Taiwan not feeling fully, I don't know, fully like she belongs. So it's like a search for belonging. It does make you think a lot about your own family, your own history, where you belong, maybe the land that you are on, the land that you come from. I think it can provide a really great foundation for that. And so for that, I really like it. But it also just wasn't my favorite of the 5 books. And I didn't always connect with it, like I said, with like the nature writing aspect of it. So I don't remember my star rating. I don't really care about star ratings anyway. But this is ranked 5 for me for the Canada Reads books. So there's that. Next, my number 4 ranking is Hench. I should have looked the name up before I got here. But her name is, you know what? I'm going to look it up while I'm here. So put a pause and then I will come back. Okay, so I had to pause for a second to look up her pronunciation because I didn't want to mess it up. So there might have been like a weird glitch. But this is Hench by Natalie Zena Walshatz. Natalie is a writer, well, obviously from Canada. She lives in Toronto. This book is, I was like how to describe it succinctly, but this is set in a world where there are superheroes and supervillains. Those are just a everyday thing. The world is full of them, and superheroes are basically born that way. They seek them out. They test kids to see if they have superhero abilities, and then once they identify that, they take them and raise them up to be superheroes. The main character is neither of those things. What she is she is a henchman for hire through a temp agency that supervillains hire out of. And so she's basically, it's become a more mundane everyday job. She does like data entry work and all that kind of stuff that would come with that, like computer work. And then one day she has she is injured after some big event with a superhero, and she's just a byproduct of it. And there's just this whole thing with that, and she ends up really running the data and seeing how destructive superheroes really are. They're not held accountable for their actions, the destruction that they're causing, and they're not as great as they seem. I think it's in the synopsis, or maybe I read it somewhere else, but it was described as the only difference between superheroes and supervillains is marketing. And through this, I can really see that it's true. The supervillains are a little different, but really, the superheroes are held on a pedestal. They're not, like I said, they're not held accountable for their actions, and nobody really looks at them clearly and objectively decides if they're good or bad or anything in between. They are called a superhero, so that just automatically makes them good, and no one questions it, judges them for their actions or anything like that. But through this, you see like the things they do to achieve justice actually is more harmful than if they had just stayed out of it. So anyway, she goes through that data, and she starts working with a major supervillain and using that data, and I don't want to get too deep into it. and spoil it. But it's pretty fun. It's really great. I at first thought it was a YA book, but it is not YA, so don't go into thinking that. But it's a lot of fun. And I think that books or stories specifically, because it could be books, movies, TV, comics, whatever, that explore this kind of thing and flip our ideas of good and evil around. I think those are really interesting and provide a really good platform to discuss this really black and white way of thinking, and how there is more gray area than we like to pretend there is. I don't know. I think that it reflects, you can really take this and reflect on how it can apply to our real life, our real world, which I think is a sign of any good fantasy book or urban fantasy or science fiction, and seeing how it applies to the real world. I think you can take this and think about our perceptions of things that happen, how we view things through the media. So this is pretty good. I'm ranking it number 4. And I just want to say real quick that all these books are good. I think I probably already said that, but I can't remember. So I just wanted to clarify that this ranking is just for fun. Anyway, I do not... 2 of these books I read on ebook, so I don't have the next one. The next one is The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. This book is another fantasy book, and it is Regency. I don't know if it's specifically Regency or Regency-esque, like very similar to that, but it's set in a world like that, and it's set during, like, I don't know what you call it, but like, not marrying season, but like, it's a season where all the the ingenues, the ladies, are seeking a man to marry. So there's like this, I don't know, like how long it is, like a 6 weeks, I don't know, a few weeks, where all the young ladies and the young men like come together, and like marriage contracts are made, and they meet people, and they get to know each other, and they make friends. And but what's more interesting about it, that's not the interesting part, is that this is a world where magic is normal. It's normalized. People are born with magic, men and women. And the thing is, men are allowed to freely practice their magic, go to school for their magic, and women aren't. As soon as they get married, they have to put this collar on that suppresses their magic, and so they're not allowed to go to school for it. They're not allowed to like advance beyond any simple charms before they're married. And this is because when they are pregnant, there's something that happens, like, I don't know if it's like a demon or some kind of something can enter your baby and be born into your baby. And so the collar suppresses it so that that doesn't happen. I'm not good at describing books, but anyway, so it's interesting because the main character doesn't want to get married. She wants to become a really powerful mage, and she meets a pair of siblings, a brother and a sister. She falls in love with the brother. She becomes friends with the sister. And so she has this dilemma of, do I marry this this man who will give me some freedoms, and have some freedoms through the marriage, or do I just turn away from that life and pursue magic like I want to? So there's a lot of interesting conflicts, obstacles in the way that women and men actually are supposed to behave, but specifically women, the restrictions that are placed on them, the way you have to act in society. And there's a couple really great discussions between 2 of the characters, the main character and usually the love interest, about male privilege and how their society treats men versus women. So I thought it was really great. It moved quickly for me. And again, like Hench, I think it reflects on our world today. You can take this and apply it to the way women's bodies or feminine bodies are policed in the real world by men specifically. And that's the biggest takeaway for me. There's a lot of other like little nuances as well, but that was obviously the biggest and most important part of it. The next book that I have finished, my rank number 2 is Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread. I didn't write down the author name. I'll put it in the description. Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread. And this one, I really didn't know much about it before going into it. Come to find out that it is a family story about 2 twin sisters and their mother. And there's a lot of really great food descriptions, which you probably could gather from the title. One of the sisters has studied culinary. She went to culinary school and loves to cook. And the other sister is an artist. And then I can't remember what the mom did. I mean, they're all really interesting. Anyway, I got on a tangent there for a second. But anyway, I was just saying that there's food in this book because the sister likes to cook. And anyway, so they're all really interesting, but they're fractured. They're they're apart. They're not connected as they were when they were younger, specifically the twin sisters. And the book switches a lot between the perspectives, specifically of the sisters, but also the mother. And you see each of their journeys, but you also see where they've fractured and come apart. Again, mostly the sisters, because that's where the biggest wedge has been driven. And figuring out what moment or moments really drove them apart, and seeing how they all navigate the world. And I thought it was a really beautiful book, a really beautiful story. And I was really drawn into it, wanting to know what happened, what's going to happen. And it was just really beautiful. I have sisters of my own, and we don't have a relationship like they do in the book, where they're really like torn apart, taken or disconnected. But I mean, if you have sisters of your own and you have a close relationship, or even one that's not very close, I think this one will like get to you. But they all have really impactful relationships along the way that will take them to the end of the book. I don't know how to describe this one without getting too like spoilery, but I will say the writing is really beautiful. The food descriptions made me hungry. All the characters are great. The main characters, but also all the characters they meet along the way. And I really, really highly recommend this one. This is a book that if it weren't for Canada Reads, I might not have picked up. I'm not usually drawn to literary fiction, so I think I probably would have let this one or not even noticed this one as much. But I'm really glad I did. And it's one I'm going to remember for a really long time. And I only have it on ebook. One day I hope I can get it get a physical copy just to have on my shelf, and I could see myself rereading this one again someday, which is pretty rare for me with literary fiction. So anyway, it's really great. I highly recommend it. Now I'm going to, I think, edit in my review of Johnny Appleseed. So I'm going to pause here, and then you're going to watch my review. Okay, so here I am with my review of Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. This book is about 200 pages, and it really, even though it's short, really packs it in. Like, it just has so much. And I know that's a lot about a lot of shorter books, and so it shouldn't be a surprise at this point. But it really does. It feels very much like it's like a slice of his life, the character's life. It's a moment basically in his life, but it's also uses this really circular storytelling structure, in which it goes from his childhood back through to his adulthood, and then again and again and again. I really like his relationships with his family, with his mother, with his kokum or his grandmother, and how close they are, how loving. This novel is just full of love, and his search for love in relationships, connection, basically, his fight for survival in some way or form, and I just really came to love Johnny. And I mentioned this in my review that I put on my Instagram, but he says something in the back, in his acknowledgement section, about how he wrote this book with the goal of showing you that Two-Spirit and queer Indigenous folks are not a was, that we are not the ethnographic and romanticized notations of revered mystic or shamanic. Instead, we are an is and a coming. And I really like that, and it impacted me because it's something that is always said when people are talking about queerness and indigeneity, is that it always comes back to talking about how things were before, like, oh, you know, like in our tradition, they were revered as shamans, or they were like this or that or whatever it happens to be. And rarely do we ever talk about the now and how it should be now, or how Indigenous queer people are living now, today. And I think that's really important. And I think it's something that we don't maybe realize that we do, talking about Two-Spirit, Indigenous queer people in terms of the past rather than the present. And it's something that I think we should be aware of, because it is something that happens to all of us as Indigenous people, especially in the United States. I can't speak for Canada or anywhere else in the world, but the media really has done a number on only representing Indigenous people in historical fiction settings or historical ways, and so that has been an act of erasure against our peoples in that way. And so that is something that should also be changed about how Indigenous queer and Two-Spirit people are represented now. And so I think in that respect, this book is really important. But like I said, it has really great storytelling. The words are really beautiful. The characters, great. The relationships, all of it, so good. So good. And just so much love. Okay, so that is my ranking for all 5 books from Canada Reads. I have 2 stand-ins because I don't have the physical books. So these are just to hold the place of The Midnight Bargain and Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread. So there it is, from bottom to the top: Two Trees Make a Forest, Hench, The Midnight Bargain, Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread, and then Johnny Appleseed. Now I want to talk about my predictions for Canada Reads, which I have already posted on my Bookstagram. I wanted to make sure that was up before the actual event started so that I didn't get affected by the results actually coming in. So I wanted it down on paper. I wanted it out there so people could see it. So there's that. So if you've already seen that, apologies. But if you don't follow me on Instagram or you're more into watching YouTube videos, this is it for you. So I'm going to share my predictions. I have it all written over here, so that's what I'm looking at right now. Okay. So I'm going to start from what I would think will be eliminated first and then go to you know what I mean. I'm going to eliminate it first all the way to the winners. The winner. Anyway, so I think that the first book that will be eliminated is Hench. Even though I really like this book, I like all the books, like I've said, even though I really like this book, I think that it's really lighthearted and fun. It's not very deep. It does touch on all the things that I've talked about, but it doesn't do it with any depth to it. I think it could go even further with that messaging, but it's really good. Like I said, I just don't think that it's going to, of these 5 books, I don't think it's going to be going past the first elimination. So this is what I think will be eliminated first. And then this one was really hard for me. I don't feel as certain about this one, but I'm just going to make a decision. So I think the next eliminated book will be Two Trees Make a Forest. I'm between this and the next book. And this one, it was a hard decision between I'm more certain of the first elimination and which 2 books I think will be going head to head, but the middle 2 I keep flip-flopping on. But I'm going to stick to my guns here. So Two Trees Make a Forest. This one is a really good book. I think it's really well written. It just, for me, didn't move me as much as the other books that are ranked. I think will go farther than this book. It didn't move me as much. And so for that, I don't think it will make it past the other 3 books that I think will last longer. So that's the only reason. The next one, the one that I think will be eliminated third is The Midnight Bargain. The reason being is that I think it's really fun. I think it has a really great message that reflects our world today. But I just, based on past Canada Reads events, I don't think it's going to make it to the final 2. It doesn't seem like fantasy books win the competition, just based on like a quick skim of the other books. And outside of it, the genre, I just think the 2 books that I think will go head to head, I think are more moving and more impactful than The Midnight Bargain. But I think it's a solid book. So for that, I think it'll be eliminated third. And then I'm not ready to commit to which one I think will be the one winner. But based on process of elimination, I'm sure you realize that I think the final 2 books will be Johnny Appleseed and Butter Honey Pig Bread. There's no book here. Just pretend there's one. I definitely think, and this is what I'm most sure of, is that Johnny Appleseed and Butter Honey Pig Bread, that should be a tongue twister. Butter Honey Pig Bread and Johnny Appleseed will go head to head in the final round. These will be the last 2 books. They will be debated. I just think they're both really moving and impactful stories, as I said. And if I had I would be happy with either book winning, but they haven't had an Indigenous author win yet. And so I think it would be really great if it was Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead that wins. But I could also easily see it being Butter, Honey, Pig, Bread, which is also a really, really great story. It's really moving, and I could really easily see that one taking the cake. Anyway, I just want to say that I had a really great time over the last 2 weeks steamrolling through all 5 of these books as fast as I could. It ended up being like perfectly timed for me. Like I was doing like 100 pages a day of each book, and it timed out really well for me to have this one finished by the Sunday before the event starts. So for now, I'm going to leave this off. I'm going to cut and come back to you after the event is over with my thoughts about what actually happened. Okay, so today is Friday, and the day after Canada Reads ended, and whoa. The whole thing overall, the whole week, went by really fast. And every day, like, watching the debates, like, everything happened fast. But especially on the first day, like, I think being the first book eliminated is really hard because you don't really get a big chance to defend your book. It all happens really fast, and really you're just introducing your book, and so that's really hard. I, of course, wasn't expecting Two Trees Make a Forest to be the first elimination, but as they were going around talking about it around the table, I was like, oh yeah, they're going to eliminate it. And I thought their reasoning made sense. And so I felt bad, but it was eliminated. And they were starting to talk about the Midnight Bargain, and that was like the closest call, like it when they were voting, or like before they were talking about it, or before they got to the voting and they were talking about it. It seemed like it was going to be one of those 2 books, and it was. And so my prediction was, okay, tomorrow is going to be the Midnight Bargain, and it was, which was really interesting. But like, it also came down to a tie, and there had to be a tiebreaker between that and Johnny Appleseed. And oh my god, I was so worried for Johnny Appleseed, and surprised that it would come down to that book being eliminated. Yeah, of all the books that were left at that point, I think it should have come down to Hench and Midnight Bargain. No offense to Hench. But anyway, so it ended up staying, which is great. Really excited. And then the next day was Hench. Hench was eliminated. So that one I felt kind of bad, because so something that was like a highlight for this year's debate was Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. I knew who he was going into the competition. I'm a fan of Kim's Convenience. I love his work on there, and I love his part on The Mandalorian. It's like a smaller part. I think he's in 1 or 2 episodes. But I was really excited to see him on The Mandalorian. So anyway, I was excited, and just like, there were a few times during the week where Paul made me cry because he was talking about Kim's Convenience being canceled, or when his book was eliminated, he said like he felt like he'd let the author down, which of course is not the case. He did not let her down. The fact that these 5 books made it to this competition week, and he had made it 3rd, like, even it being the first book eliminated, you've not let your author down. It's just a debate. So anyway, so it was things like that, and like, I thought he was really thoughtful and kind, and yeah, so he was my favorite champion, one of the 5 that were there. I actually didn't know any of the other people around the table. I don't know Canadian, I don't know, is it celebrities or personalities as well? So that's been a fun part of this show also, is learning about these people who are really well known, potentially in Canada, and obviously learning about the books. So anyway, so Hench was eliminated third. So that meant that the final day came down to the two that I thought and hoped it would be, which was Butter Honey Pig Bread and Johnny Appleseed. And I will say, I just want to like humble brag that my predictions were actually pretty close if you think about it. I did say that Hench would be eliminated first, and then Two Trees Make a Forest, and then The Midnight Bargain, and then it would come down to these two books. And the only one that was that surprised me was Hench in terms of like their order. And if you take my order and move Hench to the middle, like I basically got the order, I think. So I don't want to brag, but you know, I just was like, damn, I did pretty good actually. And I also felt like this year's debate was really respectful. Everyone was really respectful of each other's books, even as you could tell they were like playing the game strategically, you know, trying to figure things out. Like Devry Jacobs, who was defending Johnny Appleseed, she was really like on the third day of the debate, she was really coming for Butter Honey Pig Bread, like comparing Johnny Appleseed to Butter Honey Pig Bread and about what Johnny Appleseed does better and blah blah blah. And I was like, wow, she's really gunning for Butter Honey Pig Bread. Like, so I could tell that she was really like at that point like, oh, this is my, like, they're so similar, like, and they have so many similarities, which is what they kind of went into on the last day. I was definitely not sure, even up until the last moment, which of the two books would be eliminated. And the final remarks, Devry's final remarks for Johnny Appleseed made me cry because she started getting emotional, and I'm like a sympathy crier, so when other people cry and you could tell like they're really like, I don't know, like it's just like the sincerity of it, and you can tell how deep an emotion or like important it is for them. Like that gets me all the time. So then Johnny Appleseed won, and oh my god, I was just shocked, because it was like a big moment. It's 20 years of Canada Reads. I talk like I've been watching for years. I have not been watching for years. I only learned about it, I think, last year. And I think it was Carolyn from Howl's Moving Bookstagram who told me about it. And I'm just hooked now. But it's 20 years of Canada Reads, and there's never been an Indigenous author who's won. I was going through the past year's winners, and I saw, I don't know how many years back, but quite a few years back, that a Joseph Boyden book won. And if you don't know, he claimed to be Indigenous for years, and since in a little while back, I don't even know when, maybe like a couple of years ago, it came out that he wasn't Indigenous. And so to know that he won Canada Reads, probably under the impression that he was Indigenous, and having to then walk that back, like the only Indigenous book to win was from somebody who wasn't. And now they've had their first Indigenous winner on the 20-year anniversary of this show, and it's already made history because it was the first Two-Spirit Indigiqueer book to even be in the competition. And I think that in and of itself is amazing. And so it just carried a lot of weight and a lot of impact, that they are saying this is the one book that all of Canada should read. And so I just felt really proud of that moment for the author, for Indigiqueer people, for Indigenous storytelling. And I thought she defended it really well, of course. And he came on video call at the end, the author, and that was also really emotional, because you could just tell how moved he was, or how I don't know, like, I don't know, it was just good. It was great. Wally, come on, man, come here. Anyway, it was a good competition, good year. Really excited about how it played out. And actually, the debate, the way Paul defended Hench, he did a phenomenal job. And it actually, like, if you remember my ranking from earlier in the video, I ranked Hench as my fourth of the fifth, so like right above Two Trees Make a Forest, and so it went. I'm just gonna go through it again. Two Trees Make a Forest, Hench, The Midnight Bargain, Butter Honey Pig Bread, Johnny Appleseed, and I was convinced by Paul to move it up above The Midnight Bargain, and so I think my rankings now pretty closely or exactly align with how things played out with Canada Reads. And yeah, it was just a great discussion. If you've never watched Canada Reads, I highly recommend it. And don't let my really rambling thoughts sway you against that. Like, sorry, I didn't write anything down, so I'm just rambling here, like going through my stream of consciousness thoughts about the competition. And I want to say thank you to Carolyn from Howl's Movie Bookstagram, for one, for introducing me to the show, but also this year we, like, every day after the show, we would like unpack it together, basically, like our thoughts, like, oh, what did you think about this? What did you think about what happened? And so that was pretty fun. It's nice to talk about it with someone rather than just like being really insular and watching it yourself. Anyway, tell me your thoughts about the competition, if you watched it, what happened, or if you've read any of these books, what you think of the books and how it did in the competition. So that's it for now. I will see you next time in my next video. Souye Kwasatine. I'll see you later. Bye.